You know, guys, when I look at the calendar and I'm reminded that it is mid-June currently, I'm actually excited because right now, Mini-Camp and OTAs are happening right now. And then next month will be training camp. And then in August will be preseason. And then September will be the regular season.
Yes, so the season is quickly approaching. OTAs and Mini-Camp are officially underway, which means next month, training camp and preseason is pretty much just around the corner. That's an exciting part to think about. And thus, free agents is still a thing. Free agents are still getting picked up and signed. And officially, after the draft, teams can pick up free agents, and there will be no disqualification of any comp picks for next year's draft.
Nope.
Which leads us to the Pittsburgh Steelers. There are a few guys on the roster right now that are not, in our opinion, determined depth or depth that we have much trust in
Or faith in, really.
So,
And when it comes to free agency, currently there is still a lot of guys at multiple positions that Steelers could potentially look at and target to potentially come to us and benefit this team a lot.
and that's exactly what this video is going to be about. That's exactly what we're going to discuss. But one quick plug-in, guys. As you guys can see, new hats, new merch, SteelTwins.com. Have you ever felt gross or maybe a little unseemly while watching the Steelers or perhaps any other Pittsburgh sports teams? Pirates. Well, SteelTwins.com is just for you. SteelTwins is back and now a clothing line and merch shop where you can shop for hats, t-shirts, including the long-awaited Run the Ball t-shirt, and even stickers such as these. Now, these are just a few items listed, and there's plenty more you can buy right now and in the future. Some classics such as Big Play Clay, Thank You Miami, and It's Jagoff Season, all of which are freshly designed, but you'll also happen to find all new exclusive Steel Twins, Just Blaze 412, and Gross Gang merchandise. New merch, new designs, new shop, new home. SteelYinzers.com. Get your merch today.
So there you have it, guys. SteelTwins.com. Go on ahead and get your merch. Now it is time for the discussion of the video. Remaining free agents the Pittsburgh Steelers could potentially sign.
Yes, so we're going to start with a position that I'm sure a lot of you guys may disagree or may not agree. It's running back. Now, why running back? Well, let me ask you. Who is our most experienced running back right now? Trey Edmonds.
Trey Edmonds. A guy that has about, 100 and not even 150 career rushing yards, not one start in his career. How old is he, 27?
I guess.
He was undrafted in 2017, right?
Yes, and he only has, I believe, 140 rushing yards total. He hasn't started one game. That is our most experienced running back. We have 0 starting experience, 0 experience overall at the running back room.
And not too good depth. Snell, I still like him. I think he still has a bit of potential, but that has not struck yet. Anthony McFarland is still unknown, and Trey Edmonds, he's pretty much a practice squad player, let's be honest.
Essentially, and don't forget Kalen Ballage, who is a guy who could beat out a potential Benny Snell for the number 3 running back this year. But outside of all that, there's no experience. Now, when I look at the running back room in terms of free agents right now, there's 2 guys that stick out to me immediately. Frank Gore and Adrian Peterson. 2 very incredible running backs of the past generation. Obviously not the same guys that they were, not the same guys a lot of us watched or knew growing up, but they're still very good rotational pieces and would bring a lot of veteran depth to a weak running back room in terms of experience.
Yes.
Especially a guy in Adrian Peterson who has expressed he would gladly join the Steelers, and with the addition of Najee Harris through the draft, Pearson has had pre-draft and after-draft workouts with Najee Harris. So that connection's already there. He already has that mentorship down for Najee, and I think it'd be a pretty solid duo right there. You bring that connection, you bring that mentorship to Pittsburgh, and I think it boosts up the running back room a lot.
It would a lot. It really would.
Just based on that. So I'd hope that the feeling is mutual between Peterson and the Steelers, but that'll be determined in the next few weeks. I don't know if they actually go out of the way and go after another running back. They might just stick with their guys.
It won't hurt to look at these 2, like Peterson and Frank Gore. 2 guys that, for their age, still have a lot left in the tank. The fact that they're still playing currently is actually pretty impressive to me.
Yeah, the longevity of these 2 guys is one thing to definitely keep an eye on when it comes to these guys' legacy.
Yes.
So that's incredible, but definitely would be great rotational experience depth that I would say seriously need. Because we have none of that right now. Another position I really don't see the Steelers going out of the way and grabbing is tight end.
Obviously, we have Eric Ebron and Pat Freiermuth.
Yeah,
when it comes to the number 3 tight end, though, that's pretty much an open spot for anybody on the roster currently.
Yeah, either that could be a Kevin Rader or that could be a Zach Gentry. If you ask me between those two, I think Rader's going to win it. He's shown a lot more progression than Gentry has since coming into the league. Much better run blocker and a special teams demon. That's where he's going to see his time on the field. That's where he's going to make his mark for the roster.
Right, but if the Steelers would want to look at tight end in free agency and pick up a valuable number 3, Jesse James would be a guy because obviously he was with the team, so he's familiar with the team, he's familiar with the coaches, he's familiar with Ben, and as a number 3, he would be a very valuable blocker, and he's got some decent hands as well.
Absolutely.
And which, by the way, he did catch that ball.
He did catch that fucking ball. Excuse my language. But yes, I would gladly bring in Double J, Jesse James. He was someone we were pleading for the Steelers to pick up as our number 2 before Freiermuth was drafted.
Yeah.
And then I'd still welcome him back, honestly, to be real with you. As a number 3, I think that'd be perfect for him. Another position that the Steelers could look at in terms of depth, but I also don't see them doing so because of the guys that they picked up in free agency and in the draft is offensive line, specifically offensive tackle. Now, before the draft, they picked up Joe Haeg and Rashad Coward. 2 guys that I did not like the additions of because they both are below average.
Yeah, neither did I.
They are not good at all.
I mean, the only thing that's pretty much going to benefit them when it comes to this team is their versatility. They can be swing tackles. They can be, backup guards. They have that versatility that the Steelers really like in their backup offensive linemen. But
that's it.
That's pretty much it. When you watch their tape, they're not great.
No.
And if Chucks or Banner, who are more likely going to be the starters for the tackle positions, if they go down, then you pretty much kiss the tackle position goodbye for the team because when it comes to the tackle position currently, it needs to be valued a lot. Because
you saw that last year.
Yeah, you saw that last year. Villanueva, who's now with the Ravens, he was declining a lot. Zach Banner got hurt week 1, and Chucks is not best as a right tackle. He's best as a left tackle.
That's why he's being Swiss left tackle. Now, one guy Steelers Nation has really looked at and wanted the Steelers to pick up is Morgan Moses, who was recently released by the Washington football team. I doubt that's going to happen. Moses is a starting tackle in this league, and we already have our starting tackles marked down. In fact, we have our entire offensive line marked down, starting-wise. We got Chucks at left tackle. We got Kevin Dotson at left guard. We got Kendrick Green at center. We got David DeCastro at right guard. And we got Zach Banner at right tackle. Our starting lineup for the offensive line is set. Unless someone goes down, knock on wood.
Right. And Morgan Moses, he would be very solid depth piece, but I think for a guy of his potential and his style would want to look for a team that could be willing to give him that starting tackle position.
Definitely.
The opportunity. And I don't think the Steelers would really give him that opportunity because they like the guys they have right now.
Obviously. Now, a guy I would seriously have the Steelers look at, or I'd hope the Steelers will look at, and sign before training camp for extra depth and training camp battle, especially for a guy like Joe Haeg, is Dennis Kelly. Now, he did start his career in Philly before being traded to Tennessee, where he found a new lease on life, was a great swing tackle for Terry Lewan and Jack Conklin, starting in place for both guys, whether it was due to injury, suspension, or departure.
Yeah.
So he has experience as a swing tackle, is comfortable in that role, and when his name was called, he performed very well. He even helped Derrick Henry get 2,000 yards last year. He's actually been one of the more great run blockers for that offensive line the past few years for Derrick Henry's run of terror.
Yeah, a lot.
So I definitely bring him in as a backup swing tackle, which he's confident in, but God forbid any of the tackles go down, Chucks or Banner, knock on wood. Again, at least we have some determined depth that we can have a little more trust in. And if any of our guys were to go down, I fear for this offensive line. I fear for Ben. I fear for Najee.
And that's why I say tackle needs to be valued with this team. You got Ben coming back at 30, 39 years old. Yeah, you're going to need your tackles to be as strong as hell and experienced as well. And especially with Najee concerned, that's where he's going to need to be running around.
Now, keep in mind, Joe Haeg is actually costing us a 6th-round compensatory pick for next year's draft, which I believe we would have gotten that for the departure of Mike Hilton. Correct me if I'm wrong. But he is costing us a 6th-round compensatory pick. Now, they could get that back if they were to cut him before or during final cuts, rather, which that's what I do. I would keep Haeg, and then I'd sign Dennis Kelly to a 1-year deal since he's 31.
Yeah.
I'd sign him to a 1-year deal, see what he can do as a depth guy, battle with Haig as the swing tackle, and then I think Kelly would win, honestly, and we get that 6th-round commissary pick back. I think Kelly would be dependable swing tackle depth.
A more proven backup tackle at that.
That would just boost the offensive line a little bit and make me a little more comfortable and more excited for this revived offensive line.
Absolutely.
Now, another position the Steelers seriously need to address, and I think they will address because they have shown interest in this position, is edge. We currently have no number 3 outside linebacker behind Highsmith or Watt. We don't.
No.
You could say Quincy Roche, but he's a 6th-round rookie. I doubt they're going to throw him to the fire immediately.
And you could say Cassius Marsh, but let's be honest, he's been passed around more than a freaking blunt.
Yes, like, there's a reason why he's been around town. I mean, I'm just not...
Yeah, he reminds me a lot of Anthony Chicklow, and I don't want to relive memories of Anthony Chicklow. He sucked.
No.
And the Steelers have looked at edge in free agency. They were actually one of the few teams that were really, really interested in Ryan Kerrigan until we ultimately decided to sign with the Philadelphia Eagles and stay with the NFC East.
Yes. When I looked at edge depth, there were 4 guys that popped out to me to be a very reliable number 3 outside linebacker behind Watt and Highsmith.
Yeah.
Now, a few honorable mentions that aren't on this list is Melvin Ingram and Olivia Vernon. 2 guys with experience, starting experience, and they're up there with age, but I think they're going to want more starting roles.
Yeah.
Now, I could be wrong. I'd gladly bring either of them in, but they might want starting roles and big money. 4 guys I looked at are Trent Murphy, who has experience with, I believe, the football team and Buffalo, the Bills, where he did pretty solid. His only concern would probably be injuries, but he still did pretty solid as a rotational guy, and I think could do the same here. Another guy I've looked at was Justin Houston. Not the same Justin Houston, not that 2014 Justin Houston where he almost broke Strahan's record for most sacks in an NFL season, but still a very dependable rotational guy that has a lot left in the tank for his age.
Absolutely.
He showed that a lot when he left Kansas City and went to the Colts, and still shows he can still ball, he can still play. And that's a rotational piece, and if someone were to go down, I think he'd be very dependable starting backup depth.
Oh, no doubt.
Because he has that experience and can still wreak havoc. So I'd gladly bring in Justin Houston. That's actually one of my guys I'd hope the Steelers actually do pick up and sign is Justin Houston.
Oh, yeah. Another guy that the Steelers could potentially have interest in is John Simon, a former New England Patriot. Not a bad piece, pretty underrated, I'd say, as a depth piece. Not a bad player whatsoever.
No.
Another guy, actually, that I wouldn't mind at all, and I believe the Steelers did show interest in him before, was former Legion of Boom member Bruce Irvin.
I'd gladly bring in Bruce Irvin. He still shows he's got some in the tank as well as a rotational piece.
Yeah.
So I'd
doubt.
definitely bring in one of those 4 guys. The 2 top on my list out of those guys is Justin Houston and Bruce Irvin, in my opinion, because they have that starting experience. They still are capable of wreaking havoc as a rotational guy. And if any one of the guys were to go down, knock on wood, at least we have more dependable, more trustworthy depth than we do right now.
I know that.
So,
and you can't go wrong with either 4 of these guys. They're very dependable, they're experienced, and they no doubt they're better than the guys we have right now when it comes to our edge depth.
Oh, for sure. And again, edge could be a position that they actually do address before training camp goes down. I'd hope so. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Because they have shown interest in that already.
And another position that we are actually hoping the Steelers look into and potentially sign is cornerback. Now, cornerback right now is a very exciting position to look at, but at the same time, a very scary position to look at.
Yes, it's exciting because of all the young talent we picked up last year, this year, in the past, all that good stuff, right? In the draft, after the draft, there's some guys we really like. James Pierre has really impressed over the last 2 years when he came in as an undrafted rookie last year and made the roster without no preseason. And even got reps over Justin Lane, a 3rd-round pick, who was in his 2nd year, I believe.
And another cornerback, that the Steelers did bring in this past offseason as an undrafted free agent is Shakur Brown, another talented, versatile piece that does have a lot of talent and potential and could see a potential starting role in at the nickel position if he does make it that far.
That is my prediction. That is what we said after the draft, especially with how much they paid him for an undrafted free agent, Shakur Brown. He's my bet to win the nickel starting job if we don't pick up anyone. But I would still pick up someone that we have expressed interest in for a few months now before the draft. We even mentioned it on Twitter and got some decent attraction. One of the more underrated slot guys in this league and someone that could finalize our starting corner core, whether it would be Hayden, Sutton, and hopefully Brian Poole.
Former Atlanta Falcon and former New York Jet. Brian Poole is I'd say currently right now is probably one of the more valuable free agents right now. Brian Poole is pretty much a low-budget Mike Hilton, but he's still a valuable asset to whoever could potentially sign him.
He could make an absolute instant impact on this team as a slot guy.
He can pretty much do everything that Mike Hilton did when he was with the Steelers. He can blitz. He's an open-field tackler, decent coverage ability. He can create turnovers. The guy's a baller.
He was one of the bright spots for the Jets' defense last year. Even for the Falcons when he was with the Falcons, and even before he joined the Falcons when he went undrafted, the Steelers actually gave him a contract offer. He just chose the Falcons because there was a coach that he used to have experience with, so he went that route.
Yeah.
Now, because the Steelers showed interest in him when he went undrafted, I'm hoping they still have that same interest in seeing the player he has become and seeing our hole at nickel position. Especially with the competition we're going to have this year, especially week 1 at the nickel position. For example, Cole Beasley. I mean, I'm sure that's going to be targeted.
Oh, yeah,
so
definitely.
We have young guys that could step in, but they're also very inexperienced.
Right. Now, when it comes to this team, though, they tend to give those guys the opportunity.
Well, that's always been Tomlin's motto.
Yeah, it's worked at times, but at the same time, it's really, kind of cost us a lot.
Especially at the cornerback position.
So
especially at corner.
So I feel like, it would be wise for the Steelers to look at cornerback, especially a nickel option in Brian Poole. And another option that they could look at, now I highly doubt this happens, I really do, but it's still good to throw out there potentially, is Richard Sherman.
Yes, we could sign Richard Sherman, make him the outside guy opposite Hayden, and move Sutton back to the slot. I don't think this is going to happen. It's just a rumor that's been going around. Sherman was even asked about it. No, Pittsburgh hasn't called, but I'd gladly join Pittsburgh. That was Sherman's words. There's been mixed feelings between Steeler Nation, whether we could bring him in, whether we shouldn't, because he's a zone corner and he doesn't fit our scheme right now, which I see your point there and I agree, but I also think we need some serious experience at corner. Like you could say our cornerback room is definitely inferior compared to last year's. And that's due to the fact of we lost some playmakers and we lost a lot of experience.
Yeah, we did.
So we could use that experience, and those two guys in Brian Poole, Richard Sherman would bring that. Now, I'd bring in Brian Poole over Sherman just because I'm happy with Sutton moving outside. He could prove his case within his 2-year extension he just signed, and then possibly get a bigger extension in the future, which I'd hope is the case. Sutton has been one of the rare gems at the cornerback position under Tomlin and Colbert's tenure in the last 10 years. So bringing a guy like Brian Poole to finalize the cornerback starting core would be great, and at least we'd have some young depth that could develop. Possibly into future starters. I don't want to throw these guys into the fire immediately because of that inexperience factor.
Exactly.
That's just me.
No, I agree. I definitely agree.
I'd definitely bring in Brian Poole. We said it before the draft. We're saying it after the draft. We're saying it right now. I'd gladly bring in Brian Poole.
Yeah, give the man an offer. The guy's got a lot of talent. He would really, really benefit this defense.
And he's still young. And a big playmaker would be I'd say an immediate impact player for this secondary for sure. Finalize it.
No doubt.
Now, one more position we're going to look at, obviously, is safety, because we have almost no safety depth. In fact, I'd say we have no safety depth.
No.
If I look at our safety depth right now, I'm looking at Antoine Brooks. I'm looking at Trey Norwood. I'm looking at Miles Killebrew.
Maybe Arthur Mullen.
That's about it.
That's literally about it.
And that's not good. Brooks is coming to a second year. Miles Killebrew is a special teams demon. He's pretty much joined Dangerfield 2.0.
Yeah,
just faster.
Yeah, Trey Norwood's a 7th-round rookie, and Arthur Mullen, I mean, he has very little, I'd say to me, very little playing time, although he did kind of shine a little bit with the Jets.
And I don't think he'd be a true backup safety. He'd be more of a dime backer role alongside Brooks and Marcus Allen.
Yeah, so when it comes to our safety depth behind Minka and Edmonds, it's horrible, I'd say.
And God forbid one of them goes down, knock on wood. I know we've done that 1,000 times in this video, but I'm just saying, seriously, this is why depth is needed, especially at safety. Any of these guys go down.
And just like, if any of those guys go down, like, I don't want to relive nightmares of 2014 to 2017. Good God almighty. But
right there with you.
Just the Steelers have shown interest in safety like they have an edge. They actually brought in Carl Joseph in for a visit, I believe, before the draft, but he ultimately went back to the Raiders.
Now, they have brought in one specific free agent that we seriously hope the Steelers do sign. As a matter of fact, I think it's his decision because he has a few offers from, I believe, the Falcons. I've heard the Falcons, the Cowboys, and the Dolphins, and, of course, the Steelers. He has 4 teams to choose from. One team I'm hoping he does sign with is obviously the Steelers just because he lived and grew up an hour away from Pittsburgh, so he's close to home there. And he wouldn't get as much of a workload as he got in Indianapolis, or as much of a workload he would get in those other teams I just mentioned. And it'd help out his medicals a lot, and he'd still be an impact player. And the formations we could run with, him as our number 3 safety would be phenomenal.
And exciting and beneficial for this defense. And that man's name is Malik Hooker.
This guy was a top 15 pick. It's just unfortunate injuries kept happening. Otherwise, in my opinion, he'd be one of the best safeties in this league. He's a fantastic free safety, but the man can't stay healthy.
No, he can't.
That might have been due to the workload, though, in Indianapolis. Again, here in Pittsburgh, he wouldn't have that. We have our starting free safety. We have our starting strong safety. He'd pretty much be a backup, possibly work special teams, but he'd be a phenomenal option we could gladly and confidently put on the field if we were to move Minkah down to the slot with our, I'd say, inexperience, but also undependability. Is that a word? It is now. Undependability at slot corner. We can move Minkah to the slot since he's expressed he wants to move around a little bit in his defense and confuse offenses a little bit, which I think would be great. We can move Malik Hooker to free safety, put Minkah in the slot and keep Edmonds at his role, or we could have Minkah and Hooker as the deep safeties and then put Edmonds back in the box where he fits best. So we could put these guys and use them in versatile ways to make this secondary, make this defense even stronger in 3 safety sets.
And very exciting. Malik Hooker, and you look at his numbers, before he went down, it's still impressive. Still very impressive. With the injury concerns he's still been able to put up numbers before he went down.
No, he's a turnover machine. He has an eye for the ball. He's fantastic. He is. It's a shame he can't stay healthy.
No, but you're able to bring him into Pittsburgh, limit him as depth, have him be great depth piece for our safeties. It's perfect.
Yes. The same thing could be said for a Trey Boston, who I still don't know why he's a free agent or why he keeps becoming a free agent. I think he's very underrated. I think he's starting caliber, but for some reason he keeps becoming a free agent, and it takes forever for him to sign with a team. I'd gladly bring in a Trey Boston who has starting experience. I think is a very underrated safety, would be dependable safety depth, and very well could be very similar in what we just mentioned and what we could use Malik Hooker for.
Yeah, I won't mind that at all.
Now, one final guy I should say that we could bring in is Jeff Heath. Former Cowboy, former Raider. Has starting experience, worked his way up as a practice squad guy and a special teams guy, and then eventually became the starting guy for the Cowboys and the Raiders. Now, that's probably due to the fact that they had very little guys to depend on there, so that's probably why he was tossed in there. But even when his name was called, he did pretty solid.
He did.
So he'd be very good safety depth, working special teams, of course, and could be dependable if his name is called. I don't want to say when because God forbid.
Yes.
But one guy we're seriously targeting outside of those 3 names, or within those 3 names, is Malik Hooker.
Definitely Malik Hooker. I would love Malik Hooker to join this defense. I think it'd be beneficial for his career, for our defense, and this team in general.
Yes.
I would really like that a lot.
So those are the names we listed there for running back, tight end, offensive tackle, edge, corner, and safety. If you guys have any other names that you guys want to put in the comments, please do so. I'm sure we missed on a few guys, but love to hear your guys' opinions and any of your suggestions, of course.
Or any other positions that you think, we could potentially target in free agency.
And
definitely put them down in the comments below.
And any names we mentioned here, if there's anyone that you would like the Steelers to seriously sign of the names we mentioned, let us know down below, of course.
Definitely.
I'm sure the Steelers will address some positions before training camp as they're going to have to. But also, one thing to note with Malik Hooker, he said he will not sign with the team until it's close to training camp. Reason being, he probably wants to miss out on mini-camp, probably for medical reasons.
Which is understandable.
medical fears. We'll see what happens, but let's know you guys' thoughts and your suggestions down below, man. See you guys in the next one.
And go get your merch, guys. SteelTwins.com. Stay gross, stay unseemly, and like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you later.
Peace!